Hello listeners and welcome to the Montel Weekly Podcast, bringing you energy matters in an informal setting. My name is Richard Sverrisson. Today we are focusing on Poland and I'm joined by Arek Zielezny, if that's correct, Arek?
That's correct.
Okay.
Arek Zielezny.
A warm welcome to you. And I'm also joined by Marcin Czekanski, Montel's Poland correspondent. So a warm welcome to you, Marcin.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles.
I thought I'd start today, Arek, by saying, we're looking at the policy picture. Poland has a new government. What does this mean for energy? Is this a continuation of what we saw before, or is there a change? How do you view this?
Thank you for the opportunity. And it's actually a very interesting question. However, the answer is not very obvious. The government was just installed. We are probably as a sector waiting to hear the details of the new arrangement. It looks like it will be a new opening. The past Ministry of Energy has been split into two parts. A Ministry of Climate, which probably will be going more into the development and energy transition and renewables side. And the other part of the former Ministry of Energy went to the Ministry of State Assets. And here we still not see clearly which elements of the energy regulation went to which ministry. Looks like that the future is somewhere in between the renewables and the coal mines. Okay,
so that's the balance, the two factors that are balancing each other out here.
Exactly.
And of course, it's very early days. The election was only a couple of weeks ago. But one of the key questions here is, as you highlighted, the potential for a coal exit. Is that likely? And if so, by when? When would be a realistic end to coal-fired generation in Poland? It's a very big question, but
it's also a very ambitious question because that's something that, even though it's economic behind it, that will be answered by the political decision, as it was in Germany. It will be the same one in Poland. The question is, who will take the decision and when? Currently, we do not know any exact date, but the market forces are showing to me that it should be rather earlier than previously politicians seems to be declaring. So for Poland, it's much greater problem than for many other European countries. It's a big social and political topic, and it's something that cannot be solved within a few years. But definitely, we are coming to the very important point where no reverse will be possible.
Right. I mean, the country has 80% of the power generated in Poland comes from coal, hard coal and lignite, if I'm not mistaken. But with the current carbon pricing scenario, with the coal prices where they are some of these plants already unprofitable, these coal plants? So potentially if carbon prices could rise even further, it would render some of these maybe older units more uneconomic?
I think it's already happening. We've seen it in 2018 and also 2019 that the merit order sequence have changed. In the past is where the beginning of that, after of course renewables, were the lignite-fired power plants, and then only hard coal power plants, and they swapped. At the moment, with that high CO2, it's already pushing the lignite-fired power plants into difficult waters. Of course, for them, it's difficult to completely stop their operations because they have the coal mines integrated into the process, and they have to keep them running. But percentage-wise, changes in the generation are already showing that lignite-fired power plants are in retreat.
Okay, sure. Like as in other parts of Europe as well, just across the border in Germany. But what I was going to ask as well, follow up, is there an issue here of the security of supply? I mean, if some of these plants came off too quickly, could that threaten supply in Poland?
So far, I haven't seen that discussion to be taken to the table in Poland. For the larger scale power plants, the lignite fuel is here. for the coal-fired power plants, the hard coal is also domestic one in majority. So it's not a security of supply in the sense of missing power generation. It's just the question how big economic threat or in uncompetitiveness it is.
Okay. So Poland does need to lower its carbon footprint. You've said there's a new ministry for the energy transition and for climate being set up. Where does this leave gas? I mean, gas plants, do they have a role to play in Poland's energy mix? Or is it going to be, like you said, just coal and renewables?
I think there is quite a space in between these two, and that's the gas, which will occupy the middle point. We see currently that gas is getting more and more popular. Many industrial customers which are considering what to do, if to install PV panels or something else to create them independent from the power perspective. They are very often looking into the cogen solutions. And this cogen is almost in all the cases based on gas fuel.
So coal-fired generation, some form of biomass or coal with gas. Yeah.
No, cogen in the sense of production of power and heat.
Okay, power and heat in that sense. So the CHP kind of
exactly.
CMP variant. Okay, very interesting. So, but you also say that maybe with Poland's capacity mechanism, you could see some gas-fired generation being built as a result of their ways of trying to back up the system?
Sure. It's also happening. The capacity mechanism was introduced in one way to encourage a new capacity add-ons to the system. After few larger scale coal mine investments seen last year, this year I would say that quite a few new gas-fired units might be auctioned, and the auction is in a few days, beginning of December. So after the result of the auction, we should see some announcements.
Okay, so we'll wait eagerly for the results of that auction, and then we'll have some picture of Poland's future energy mix. Interesting.
Thank you, Richard. So you mentioned there are like two decision centers within the government now regarding the energy policy, and the picture is not clear who will take responsibility eventually. So does it reflect like a split in the government between pro-coal part and let's say pro-renewables?
I would say it's very difficult to answer. I wouldn't take the position into such a discussion. I would rather address it in a way that government have to balance out the social demand of the coal mining sector with the political demands of the voters, which are concerned about the climate change.
Listeners who aren't familiar with Poland and the setup here, I think, coal is a huge part of, people's jobs and livelihoods in certain parts, especially is it Upper Silesia, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, south of the country. Also in the east, in the Lublin region. Poland has set some very ambitious goals for renewables by 2040, like 20 gigawatts of photovoltaics compared to 1 gigawatt now, and also more than 10 gigawatts of offshore wind. So do you think we can achieve it? I'm referring to photovoltaics mainly because it seems like an enormous growth from what we have now.
I would say it looks from today's perspective as very aggressive. However, at the same time, it has to be noted that the first year of real development of the solar in Poland brought probably roughly around 1,000 megawatt installed capacity. So if you multiply it by 10 years, kind of doesn't make that prediction, that target so impossible. So I would say very ambitious. Hopefully we get there. Looks like there might be chances to get there, but if we reach 90% or 80% of that, it would be also a big success.
I mean, that's a phenomenal number in a sense. Do you think, does this come mainly from utility scale farms or from households, or a combination of both? I mean, where is the biggest growth area?
Probably the 20 gigawatt that needs to be installed. would have to come from the industrial scale or commercial installations. 2019 capacities that were added. Surprisingly, they are coming in vast majority from the small installation, household, small business installations, and so on. So this is very intriguing. How the bottom up movement is creating the energy transition in that field.
That's very interesting. I mean, you've seen it happen in other countries, for example, in Germany especially, but others besides. But how are the big utilities in Poland dealing with this change? I mean, do they see it as a threat, as in, it could threaten some of the bottom line, certainly some of the retailers, because if, it'd be falling demand for their products? Or do they see it as an opportunity and a growth area to develop their renewables portfolio?
I see a very positive change in that respect. If we would look a few years ago, quite a lot of utilities would treat it as a threat. Probably a year ago, maybe this year, there was a fundamental change in the perception and in the way they communicate their plans into the energy transition, and more of them are very optimistically looking into renewable generations, looking to Tauron purchase of wind energy portfolio, plans of PGE on offshore, and also probably all of the utilities. They are having some larger scale projects on solar somewhere in the development pipeline. So from that point of view, I see it as a very positive change.
Absolutely. I mean, in some ways, you could also almost say that they're being forced to make that change because of the environment around them. Couldn't you? I mean,
but I prefer if they are being forced by the environment around them, not by the political decision.
Absolutely, and the market forces that are driving that change. What about offshore wind? Is this a growth area as well? I mean, you've mentioned some companies are expanding, domestic firms within Poland. Do you see a role here for outside investors from outside the country?
There will be a role for outside investors. I would say at the moment, I don't think so. Any Polish company declared to develop offshore installation without participation of any more experienced partner. It's Equinor who is in Poland. The Ørsted is in Poland. Recently, RWE announced purchase of the portfolio of the one offshore project. So I think this will be probably the biggest role for the foreign investors in the Polish power industry at the moment.
And they have a lot of expertise, of course. They're building projects all over Northern Europe. Are there any hurdles or obstacles restricting renewables growth in Poland? I mean, there is this rule for onshore wind, which is also holding back growth, maybe?
Yes, exactly. I would say for the offshore, it looks like that the regulations are being prepared. And I would say the biggest obstacle is lack of regulations, but I hope it will be changing soon. For the solar, I do not see that many of problems, but for the onshore wind, definitely the distance regulation that prohibits to build new onshore wind installation closer than 10 times height of the installation is making it very, very difficult or almost impossible to find new projects. And hopefully what some gossips are saying, the regulation will not be abolished, but will be probably relaxed a bit, which can add a few additional projects to the wind onshore capacity.
We see that power prices in Poland are about 10 to 15 euros higher than in certainly in Germany. Do you expect this spread to continue? I mean, there is talk of once Germany exits nuclear plants, there would be a little bit of capacity squeeze there and it starts to exit coal. Do you see then maybe German prices coming up or Polish falling? Or, what are your views here, Arek?
In principle, considering the status quo on the emissions market, because this is the key for the future prices currently, I would say that the Polish prices have potential to go down. With the new additions of renewable capacities, probably unsustainable in the long term coal costs, and also relatively high clean dark spread at the moment. So there is a room to go down. The German prices, on the contrary, what we see recently are under pressure to grow. There was a longer period of time where German prices, or German curve, was backwardation. The price of every second following year was cheaper than the current one. This has gone already. We see that it inverted, and we have typical contango in Germany. So from my point of view, the prices will rather converge, and it will be for both of them moving towards each other.
It'll be interesting to see that develop, how it pans out in the next few years.
We see more import capacity available for the market in Poland this year. How do you see this change the market? Has this had any substantial impact on spot prices, or still to a few megawatts to see any substantial change?
I think after many years where there was very limited or almost no capacity given by the TSO to the market, the increase that we observed recently is very welcomed by the market participants. Also, the XBIT implementation, which linked Poland to European markets with the use of cross-border capacities, had
This is the intraday market.
Exactly.
Poland, the cross-border intraday market.
Has substantially increased the liquidity on the intraday market in Poland. So these are all the good developments that we see. It would be also interesting to see if either TSOs or some market participants are able to generate some long-term capacity arrangement for the importer or exporter based on the cross-border capacity. Some, I don't know, or other physical rights or financial rights. This would be very interesting development. And also the cross-border activity brings a bit of volatility and new approach to the Polish market, which recently is not very, I would say, not very liquid and not very rich in terms of number of participants.
So this would maybe, one would hope, boost the amount of participants, then boost liquidity further, a sort of virtuous circle.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've been touching mainly, Arek, on power, but there's an interesting, I mean, the gas market. I wish we had more time to talk about gas market issues, but just leave it with one question, really. The Polish gas monopoly, PGNiG, recently cancelled or didn't prolong its extend a 10-year deal with Gazprom for gas through the Yamal pipeline. What's the implication of this view, and will the gas from the Yamal be made available to market participants within Poland?
I would say I'm grateful that I'm not the one that has to decide on that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
On one hand, the relations between Poland and Gazprom and gas market development in Poland are quite complicated and difficult. But on the other hand, I would say it would be a shame probably if the additional supplier of the gas or additional supply or way of supplying the gas to the Polish market would not be given to market participants in the future. So I think, and this is how I read declarations of PGNiG and Polish authorities, that they do not want to prolong the contract, but they are not excluding contracting or off-taking the gas on the different frameworks than the long-term deal.
I noticed maybe some of the listeners also discovered that I didn't actually say what your role was or what your position is, but you are managing director of Laconia Investments, are you not? And you have been active in the Polish market for many years. So you're a veteran of this market. So Arek, thank you very much for joining the Montel podcast this week.
Thank you.
And thank you, Marcin, for joining as well. That's about all we've got time for this week, listeners. Please remember to follow all the latest news on Montel Online, and you can follow us on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, and subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.